Hello gamers and welcome to Xbot and Pony. My name is Phil.
My name is Nick.
And for today's discussion, we've saw in the news recently that apparently Capcom have claimed that 80% of their sales over the last year have been digital. Does this mean that this is the end of physical for gamers in the coming years? What do you think, Nick, when you hear that 80% of their sales were digital this year? What's your reaction?
I was actually discussing this with my partner when I seen that pop up. It's an interesting one because I myself personally think I'm a physical collector. I have to have games physical. But I'm thinking this gen I've changed to physical on launch for price-wise, as digital games are full whack here in Australia online. They're $99.95. We can walk into the shop, buy a game for $69. You own it physically. If you don't like it, you can sell it, trade it, lend it to friends, lend it to my brothers. Whereas my brother, I know he's full digital. He very rarely buys a disc. He has a few discs, but he just full digital. He loves his sports games, his Call of Duty games, but he just goes full digital, does the console sharing on Xbox with my other brother, and they share the games, and he doesn't care about paying that extra $30 every game. He just doesn't want to have a physical disc. When I seen it, my first thought was, does COVID affect these sales? Because we've seen Animal Crossing break digital sales. We've seen The Last of Us 2 break sales. Is it really 80%, or is those numbers inflated slightly? Because I think the last time we said, or they talked about it, it was 60-40. Digital sales were 60-40. They'd overtaken physical. So 80 is huge. That's huge.
It is.
Huge amount. So they also said they want to up that to 90. Why would they not want to sell physical copies?
Well, I mean, there's got to be multiple reasons there, for sure. I think you might be onto something that I think we have to accept, even us old gamers, have to accept that that's the way it's going, right? Like, physical is going to be phased out, or it will be a much smaller proportion of the market. But what may have happened there with COVID is that actually it gave it a boost. It stuck a rocket up its ass. Everyone's been locked at home and they're like, well, I still want to play these games, but I can't get to them. So let's go digital. And certainly a lot of people have been playing around with that idea. When the Switch came out, I think you and I were discussing that as to actually, would we go entirely digital for Switch?
Yes.
Because you wanted to have that whole collection with you wherever you went. It didn't even have to keep switching the cartridges and that.
Easy to lose them as well.
Exactly right. Yeah. But you're right. What I find on the PlayStation Store anyway is, because I still use the British store, is a brand new game will be £50. So we're talking like $100-ish, right? And for the digital version. And then I know, like you said, that the physical version would have been £40, with about $79. So for me, it's still a rip-off. Like, to me, I wouldn't go digital because it's so much more expensive, despite it being more convenient. But clearly, that's not the way people are thinking. That's not the way things are going. Do you think next gen that's going to be eclipsed to the point where physical is no longer needed?
Well, I think we've got to look at the way the industry's going. We know Microsoft's going to be pushing xCloud huge. So that just gets rid of anything and everything. You're not even downloading. It's full digital, isn't it? You're just streaming your games. I personally bought Resident Evil 3 digitally, and that was due to COVID, wanting the game early, being bored, stuck at home. I actually bought Resident Evil 7 digitally as well, but that was because I had a $100 gift card for Xbox given to me. So at the time it came out, I used that $100 to buy it. I normally wouldn't, because I could walk in the shop and buy it for $69.79, save money, and then have the ability to resell it. Plus, I like to put those games on my shelf. I do have this thing where if a game pops up and it's under $10 digitally on sale, I tend to buy it. I don't know why, if it comes down to being lazy and not wanting to get off my butt and put a disc in the drive. Especially with like backwards compatible games, I don't feel the urge to go out and buy the discs. With some of them, Xbox games, they can be pretty high, and all of a sudden they're on sale on the Xbox store for $4.99. Far Cry 3 was on sale today for $4.99, down from $47.
There you go.
That's the remastered version, and I just went, you know what, $4.99, done, sold. I'll buy that. I don't care. That's one of the best Far Cry games. I might never play that. Again, I probably will, but I tend to do it because it's so cheap. But like we said before, initially when the games first come out, they're not. They're full whack. And that's why Capcom wants it to be 90%.
Of course, yeah. They get access to more of that money, more of that revenue.
They don't have to
I get why it makes
retail.
sense to the developers and the publishers, why they want it to be mostly digital. You know, I get that. You know, you're getting a higher proportion of the money, and also you're not spending the money printing the games and getting the discs made and getting them distributed and all of that. I totally understand why it makes sense for those companies and why they would want it to get 90%. I think I'm just an old man gamer, man. I'm not sure I can quite let go of physical.
I in my mind, it's like older games, digital's fine, or indie games, digital's fine. I know you're the opposite. You love to get your little collectors and get those cases and stuff. I'm leaning more towards digital, and I guess with Game Pass, I have no reason to go out and buy first-party Microsoft games. But if I didn't have Game Pass, I probably still would buy them on a disc. I wouldn't buy them digitally. That's only because I have Game Pass I get them digitally. And going back to the money part, I think it's about 50% extra. I worked at JB and I know how much they used to pay for a copy of a game. So when Take-Two, Sega, Capcom sell that game to JB Hi-Fi, they pay 50 odd bucks for it, maybe a little bit more, depending on the quality or quantity you buy. And then the profit in there is maybe 20, 30 bucks. EB, they're making a fair bit. Whereas if they sell digitally, like you said, they lose all those costs on manufacturing, transport, and then they're making 100% profit. So they're making 150% more profit than they are than a disc version.
Yeah.
They might make 50 bucks off that and make $100 off a digital version, or maybe even more because they're not paying for the disc and everything. So maybe even $110 to $120 Australian off a digital version than they would off a physical version, making 50 to 60 bucks.
You're right.
So it's huge money wise for these companies to cut them out. The take back on that is, and I'm seeing it being less relevant now because of digital, but the games industry survived on pre-owned games. I mean, at the start of this generation, Microsoft were hung, really. They were on the executioner's block for wanting to block pre-owned games.
Yeah.
But now, how many Sony fans are, I'm buying a digital version PS5? As little as 7-8 years later, they're buying the original version of the Xbox One, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
I have to think you're wrong. That's so Microsoft
Well,
clearly saw that coming, and they weren't wrong to foresee the future of gaming being in that direction. Just maybe that time wasn't quite right to go all in, right?
Yeah.
And even now, like even though most people accept that we're heading down a digital route, both of those consoles are likely to be offering a digital only version for next gen.
100%.
Because it's a first step. It's like we're not fully going that way.
No.
But here's the option. And it will be curious to see which one sells better. And I do suspect that digital version, especially if it's a cheaper version, is actually going to outsell.
I reckon it will. I think if they can take $100 off that, no disc drive, digital only version, same power, even if it's a little bit less power in some regards, because we still don't know what the digital PS5 does. We don't know what the power is. They haven't said anything about it. They just said, here's a digital version without a disc drive. And we already have one on the market. We laughed when Microsoft announced it and the price they announced it for. We both joked and said, they're never going to sell that. And apparently they have. Those digital Xbox Ones have sold. And if they weren't selling, I don't think we'd see Microsoft releasing their unannounced Xbox Series S digital console later this year. It's the way the industry's going. It's the way the world's going with music, movies. We've seen this in other media, so it makes sense. I don't like it. I do like a physical copy. It's your collector's editions and all your trophies and stuff. I guess they'll still make those things for us old folks, but they much prefer to sell a digital copy these days because it's just more profit.
For sure. Yeah. So you might foresee something like halfway through next gen that just digital sales have so taken over that it becomes a bit of a boutique market, where you can only order the physical versions off of Amazon, something like that. EB Games,
Limited run games.
GameStop might be gone. Or limited run games. Yeah.
Maybe they'll start doing more business.
Maybe they have been growing, so it could happen.
It's interesting because I was in the shop the other day and I didn't realize that Ori actually has a disc version as well. There is a disc version for Ori, and with Microsoft pushing Game Pass and all that. And my first thought of that was, oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know they had that. I thought it'd be digital only. When we see Ori 3, or if we see Ori 3, will that be digital only? Because it's going to be a little bit down the track. So that's probably one to look out for, those type of games. Streets of Rage 4. Did Limited Run do that?
The Limited Run did do their own version of it. Yeah, I'm actually waiting for mine to come.
Yes, of course. I knew you'd be the perfect person to ask. Yeah. And I'm sure you showed me before, actually, because it just logged in my brain there, that these games that most people would want a physical copy for, because it's a big franchise that you used to play when you grew up. You want to put it on your shelf and show people, or show yourself. It's a little bit of a pride thing. It's a collector's thing. It's what we enjoy to do with this hobby. But eventually that might just end. We might be printing out our own cases like they do with digital only games and having little codes in there just for ourselves at home.
Maybe.
Just to put them on the shelf.
Yeah, we're heading the way of vinyl, eh?
Well, Resident Evil 14, and you just print off, make your own case and put it on the shelf. With the other Resident Evil games that they just don't do anymore. Like, I could see people doing it just to have a case up there to say I own this game, even though it's digital on my console. So different times.
It is, and I think I'd be willing to put my prediction down in blood that I think this is going to be the last gen with disc drives and physical media. I think.
And in regards to that, Phil Spencer did come out recently and say he thinks we're about 10 years off from a full digital future. So whether that means one more generation after this or it gets brought forward, who knows? But it could be a bit of PR speak as well to calm us down and not make us panic and think that a digital future is around the corner, because it does seem likely.
Planting the seeds now, so we don't seem so much, doesn't seem so bad down the line.
I mean, 6 years, who knows? But yeah, we're going to see 4 consoles on the market at the end of this year, which probably going to be the first time ever that's happened. So, and physical, digital versions, and I think those digital versions are probably going to jump out at people, even though in the long run they're going to spend more money because digital games are more expensive and they can't trade them, sell them, share them. But initially it's like, I'll just get that because I don't care about going to the shops anymore. I don't want to have all this stuff hanging around. So
you're not wrong. That's probably the way we're heading. So I'm going to hold on to my precious for as long.
Hold on to your precious. It could be worth a lot of money later on.
It might do. What do you guys think? So with Capcom announcing that 80% of their sales are digital, does this mean it's the end of physical gaming over the next gen? Do you think there'll even be a physical drive in the following gen? Who knows? Let us know below.
Like and subscribe, guys, and we'll catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.
With that, Phil Spencer did come out and say he reckons we're about 10 years off from a digital future.
Hi.
Take 2.
That's so going in the bloopers. Love it.
So
thank you, Tamika.
She does it well, doesn't she?